Welcome to the Long Take Review, where four college professors talk film, providing insight, not assigning homework. I'm your host, Jen Sobchak-Bankard, and I'm here with three friends who have changed me for good. First, he prefers to travel by bubble. It's PT McNiff. How's it going, PT?
I swear, it never ends with that girl. I'm doing well, Jen. How are you?
I'm doing great. And he's off to see The Wizard. It's Greg Cass. How's it going, Greg?
I don't like straw. It's coarse, irritating, and it gets everywhere. I'm good, Jen. How are you doing?
Wow. Confused, but good. And last but not least, he's not lying. He's just looking at things another way. It's Antonio Elefano. How are you doing, Antonio?
I've had so many friends, but only three that mattered.
Aww.
Not on this call, but three really good friends.
No, I should tell you about them someday.
Listeners, those were all references to the film we are here to review today, Wicked for Good, the concluding sequel to John M. Chu's adaptation of the Broadway musical Wicked. It came out in theaters a couple weeks ago. It was one of the big releases over the Thanksgiving holiday. Reviews have been mixed, but box office seems to be holding steady. You know, the word on the street is like it's about the same as when Wicked opened, the first installment. If you were
we can
listening
talk about
to
that more when we get into Awards Watch. We can talk about that.
Yes.
That's not looking that nice, actually.
Well, yeah, there's a good. Well, okay, never mind. If you're listening to us for the first time, we'll have a spoiler-free section designed for those who have not yet seen the film, and then with a very clear alert, we will shift into spoiler mode for the rest of the show. PT, if listeners think we're wonderful after listening to this episode, what can they do?
Well, there's no place like home, so why don't you invite us into your home whenever we have new episodes by following along with the podcast. We host the show on Jen's Substack at thelongtake.substack.com, but you can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Overcast, and many other locations. You can also follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. Or you can find us on Letterboxd. You can follow the account at LTRpod, or you can search for the hashtag LTRpod to see what each of us individually has been watching. Except for Jen. Jen?
I loved my movies. I'm caught up now.
Well, I didn't see that in the last 10 minutes, so I must have just missed it.
I can't just do it right after the movie's over. I have to do it when I can, okay?
What are credits for, if not logging on Letterboxd? I'm just going to say it.
The drive
Talking
home
to
is
the other
when you
people
think...
who went to the movie with you, Greg. No, I'm just kidding.
Go to the movies with people? I've never heard about this.
No, that's true. I go to the movies by myself all the time. So I don't know why I said that. That's only true for this week. That's it. All right. So as always, we're going to start with the short take. What was everyone's general reaction for Wicked for Good? ? I don't know where we should start. I'm like, should we start with the person who's the grumpiest? That's probably Greg. Do we start with me, who's probably going to be the least grumpy? I don't know. What do we think?
I will say you never get to start, so why don't you start?
Oh, that's true.
Because you liked it the most.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm actually, like, as I was thinking about us recording this episode, I was remembering when I really felt like I was on Wicked Island last year when we were doing this episode. Not completely, because I think Antonio was with me, but I remember like sticking up for the first Wicked a lot, and people being like, well, that's silly, it doesn't make sense. And I'm like, but so relative to everybody, I suspect I'm going to take on that same role, but I do want to be clear that this is, as people have heard, this is not as good as the original. It has a way more problems with it. I can't in good conscience say that it is a good movie that works well. However, I really enjoyed it still. I was probably always going to enjoy it. I cried 3 times. I clocked it. I cried 3 times. We could talk in spoiler mode about which moments made that happen. But I still felt emotionally invested. I think if I were to diagnose what the major problem with this is that it actually hews much more closely to the stage play or the Broadway musical in terms of the plot and the pacing, which and does less adaptation. And so I think that the root, I think, of most people's problems, I think, comes from that. People complain it feels more rushed, right? People being like there are leaps in plot logic that don't make sense. Somehow it's longer, and yet still feels like we don't get enough. So I admit that there are problems, but I think that the performances at the center of this carry the movie and make me kind of overlook a lot of those things. And while I see lots of missed opportunities in terms of turning this into a better film, I still was very happy with what I got. Now, Antonio, you were with me on Wicked Island last year, more or less, or you were the closest. You were on approaching a rowboat to leave Wicked Island last year.
I liked the first Wicked, and I was pleasantly surprised because I am not a huge fan of the stage musical, but watching this movie reminded me why I didn't like the stage musical. It was because of the weak second act, and that being the part that didn't hold together for me. But I had hope that I mean I invested in this movie, right? Like this was on my hype draft and my Vulture, and it was so expensive. But alas, there was only so much that John Chu and his wonderful cast could do with a musical or half musical with sort of like ho-hum music, with the exception of one song, the title song, and an overly complicated, often just baffling plot. Like I'd forgotten some of the things that I really disliked about the second act of Wicked on stage. And then when I saw it on screen, I was like, oh yeah, that doesn't work. I agree though, Jen, that as much as I sort of like didn't enjoy a lot of the buildup of the movie, there were moments in it where I too felt moved. And at the end, I still felt, I think, what I was supposed to feel, just like a more muted version of the sort of soaring feeling I felt at the end of the first Wicked. So if we're going to go from least grumpy to most grumpy, I think that takes us to PT.
Sure. Although maybe I'm just not as grumpy. I think I did rate it lower than Greg, though. Not that everything's about.
I know, but a Greg 3-star is like a PT or like an Antonio 2-star.
Okay,
so
that's fair.
So,
there's a little inflation adjustment. That's fair. Yeah, I want to clarify. I didn't like the idea of Wicked going into Wicked, but I left Wicked liking it. I was pro Wicked. And I think let's check the transcript of the episode. I was in favor. I was saying positive things about the movie. So, you guys have your, castle at the peak of Wicked Island, but I was certainly vacationing on the beach. So, and now I'm gone. I'm off. I'm not, and I probably won't be back. But this movie has like the problems that you have already diagnosed them. I don't know the musical. I've never seen the musical. I've only vaguely heard of it. I did hear, I've had for a few years now that, the second movie though, because the second act, I don't know. There was the hope that because they were adding a couple of songs and because they extended some things in the first movie, that was going to lay some groundwork that would fix some of the issues, because they had more time to do what happens in the second act. That did not happen. That I don't think. If it's better in this version, then I'm worried about ever seeing the musical proper, because it's one of those things where there's so much going on and it runs so quickly through the stuff that's unfolding that it's somehow very fast, but also can be really boring for stretches because you're just sort of being told what's happening. Like this is happening and this person's like this now. And now this person's doing this. And then as the person who is the most anti-musical here, I will just note this, that my impression is I just did a count on the Wikipedia page. There's 12 musical numbers listed for this movie. I think only 3 of them were full songs. Everything else felt like it was a reprise of a song I should already know. And they really just did like a verse and a chorus. And then they're like, all right, we're done. And I feel like the sort of that infection of in movie trailers of like, let's not emphasize it's a musical, actually like came into this movie where they're like, okay, we don't have time for the whole song. We'll get to the bits. You get it. Now we'll go back to the plot. And it's like running through the plot again. So, again, I don't know if I would have liked it more with more songs because of my predilections, but that was kind of a bummer where I was like, oh, the songs are over. The songs barely have any impact. And I don't know if it's because they're not good, or if it's because they're barely executed in the movie, except for a couple of big ones that I thought were the best parts. Cause I was like, oh yeah, they really slowed down to focus on this. So yeah, I don't know. I did like the last movie. I didn't really care for this one. Greg, what do you think?
I think everybody who made this looked like they were having a lot of fun, and good for them. So
the death knell of politeness.
I'm going to preface this by just saying that I too have never seen the musical, and I am not an expert on this, but I think 100% of the things in this I really hated are actually directly from the musical. So I'm not prepared to say John Chu innocent, but it seems to me that I just did not understand. I actually left this movie relatively angry that anybody had ever told me Wicked was a good musical. I'm like, this is the thing that you've been talking about that's been running sold out for 20 years, 30 years on Broadway. Like this is it. Because it really, to me, the major crime here is the way it treats the Wizard of Oz. And the fact that nobody clued me into this. I hated everybody who's ever seen Wicked and not clued me into this. Because that is, it's not even like one of my favorite movies of all time, but that is like a key piece of movie history and a huge part of, our culture. If America's going down, one of the things we should leave is Wizard of Oz. And yet it's like totally mangled and completely trashed by this musical / movie. And I cannot describe how livid I was at those developments because they're like the worst kind of prequel-y things with payoff that doesn't even matter. It's like, we're going to do this really convoluted way to get to this character that you know already, but we're not going to do anything with them. Just remind you, here's your remember berries. Like, you remember him. He's a guy. Anyway, on to the plot. So I will say I don't disagree. I think the two leads are incredible. I think that remains true. I think there are members of this cast who clearly cannot sing and are horribly miscast. And I'm really bummed out for those people because I think this movie did them a disservice. And that's harsh for me because there's some people in this I really like. So, I will say though, and I'm not going to spend all night being grumpy because like I technically went the night before. I went to the early fan previews while you all were talking about Begonia. And the crowd there was so excited. And when key moments happens, there were gasps and there were ahs, and like, it's really hard to sit in a theater full of people who are seeing something they clearly are really moved by and not feel like this kind of experience still matters and is still a key part of what's keeping these movie theaters alive. So this one is a hard miss for me, but I really don't blame anybody who, if this was your one movie you took your family to over Thanksgiving, I hope you had a great time. And I really mean that sincerely, because everybody looked like they were having so much fun dancing and singing together. Jen?
I had applause at the end of my theater was packed. I went at the last second because I pulled a Barbenheimer of sorts where I took my family to go see Zootopia 2. We went and had lunch. And then I wasn't planning to do this, but my husband, who's like, I value sleep. And so why don't you go see this Wicked now while it's still daylight? And I will go take the kids somewhere and then come back for you. And I was like, I can't argue with that. So I actually kind of like ran back into the theater being like, okay, when's the next showing for Wicked? And there were 2 seats left in the screening. And so, yeah, very full, lot, and sort of what Greg's describing, lots of verbal reactions during the movie, applause at the end. So, yeah, people are enjoying it. I would say, I understand your complaints about the harm potentially done to the film, The Wizard of Oz. But at the same time, I think part of that is because the film adaptation forces a visualization of those like connection points or intersections, whereas on a stage you do not need to do that. And so it actually works. Those Wizard of Oz sort of touch points do work a lot better on stage than they do on screen, I think. And we can talk in spoiler mode about like how those were handled in the film and why maybe they're not great for a lot of people who, especially ones who didn't see those things coming. But I think that's probably the problem. I think, yeah, largely I see all the problems in this movie as one of adaptation, and it's too bad because I like Antonio, because based on the first one, I was optimistic. I was like, well, the second act of this is much shorter and much weaker, especially musically. I actually am fine with the plot of the the musical. Sorry, Greg. I just have a higher tolerance for like melodrama than you do, probably. Yeah, so I think I had been optimistic that John M. Chu would be willing to change enough from the source text to address some of the issues potentially that people might have with the plot and kind of okay. So in musical theater, second act of the show is always much shorter, and therefore, and this is true for musicals in general, but time is much more compressed. So in a musical, you might get like a huge major event kind of seemingly out of nowhere, and then they just sing about it a little bit and then they move on to the next thing. You know, like there are points in musicals where like someone will just sail by on like a float or like some kind of set piece and sing something, and you're like, oh, so that was a thing that happened. And that's like totally normal in the context of a musical anyway. But I think what happened probably was they just hold this show too dear and weren't willing to actually make those big revisions that might have helped with some of the problems.
Well, Jen, I appreciate you agree with me. The problem is inherently musicals. That's good to note. And I will just go with it. I will just say, I don't think this movie is threatening The Wizard of Oz. I think it just is undermining this movie. And by extension, the first movie, by, trying to joust with that. I wasn't as offended by it as Greg was, but the more it was like, remember this thing? Like it was the first movie, the first Wicked had enough of like, this is where she gets her hat. That is like very prequely where it's like, okay. But then like this movie is just sort of like, oh, we figured out where Elphaba got everything. This is where everyone else got everything else in The Wizard of Oz. Like every other thing that you see, like, do you want to know where the bucket came from? Good news. I don't think that's a spoiler. Is that a spoiler?
We're getting really close. Why don't we do recommendation algorithm, and then we'll put a pin in this conversation until we get to spoiler mode. So the recommendation algorithm in which we establish the audience of a film. So I don't know if we have that much for this necessarily, but I think the big question is, what about and maybe we've discussed this a little bit too much already, but what about the first film? If people were like, I was into the first movie, what are they also going to still like about this one? And conversely, what are things that maybe people didn't like about the first film that are almost like doubled down upon in this one, maybe? Or, you know what I mean? Like how do we relate to someone who has seen Wicked and their feelings about it versus this movie?
So I will say again, as the most grumpy, I saw it that first Wednesday. I talked to a ton of colleagues going into the Thanksgiving break, and I was still telling them to go see it, right? Like it is still worth seeing. If you saw the first one, I don't think you can just not see this, and I wouldn't recommend it, right? You have to kind of see it through and understand it all. So I would say, it's also clearly aimed at the demographic. My daughter has not seen this, but has seen Elphaba literally on every product imaginable, and Glinda. And she keeps asking, like, who is the pink lady? I want to know more about the pink lady. And like, despite all my grumpiness, like I will show her this someday. So like, if you're just caught up in the magic of this world and you love those two characters, I'm not going to tell you not to see it. Right. I think it's absolutely delivering on that. And, the two of them do get some really fun moments together. And so, everybody I told to go, now that we're after Thanksgiving, went and had a great time. So maybe it's just me that's grumpy. MPT on whatever the other island is called. That's not Wicked Island.
It's like, remember when your like best theater friends from school got cast in a bad play and you cheered them on anyway? It's kind of like that. As if you were watching like Joan Still from the movie Theater Camp, but like as if like you were like you knew the people. That's
rude.
That's not fair. There's some really funny moments in Joan Still. Yeah, I mean, I think the maybe a more direct version of the answers that have already been given are like, if you were like, well, I love Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande in the first movie, it's like, well, come back. Like, they're still here. They don't get as much time together as they do in the first movie, but like, I don't think anyone should be surprised by that, given where the first movie ends. But
they're actually together a little bit more than they would be in the musical.
That makes sense. That's a smart move.
Not much, but like, there are efforts made to like give them more screen time together.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will say, like, if you're someone who liked Wicked but wasn't in love with it, but you do like The Wizard of Oz, like, it's kind of worth seeing to be like, oh, how do you feel about this? I don't know if they'll react positively. But this is where they make the connections. This is where the stuff like intersects. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. And I think if you didn't like the sort of artistic presentation of this, if you were the kind of person who complained about the cinematography or the lighting, that's not really any different. Like, it's very much of a piece. This very feels like this is continuing on. So if that was a sticking point for you, maybe don't go see this, because it's like, well, that's still here and the movie's not as good. So I don't know if that's going to be, will that be enough? The two things, the dip in quality, but the continuation of technical issues that you had will probably hold you back from liking it. But I would assume for most people, and again, this has made a lot of money. It's going to be very popular. People are there. People are there for our two leads. People are there for some of the supporting characters too. Maybe not all of them, but some of the supporting characters. And, I don't know who we have to tell. I don't know who we have to tell to go see it. Well, the coward is a very small part, actually. I think I don't think we need to tell anybody to go see this. They've seen it, or they're going to see
That's
it.
fair.
Or they're not going
to see it. I think what watching this movie made me realize is that easily the greatest strength of the first movie, there's a lot going for the first movie, but its biggest strength is the combination of Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. And a lot of people make fun of them because they're press tour and like they hold each other's fingers or whatever, like all that stuff. But I think their chemistry is very real and kind of like you can't replicate it. And the mixture of their two voices as they sing together is so strong and so magical that I think that like that is what makes this movie at its core still good for me, like by the end. And like when I listen to just like any version of the song For Good, I'm a mess. And so like they landed that plane at least, if that makes sense. But okay.
It was a broom. Well, and that gets back to I just think that's where this movie lost me. If you liked the kind of like, hey, this is the real romance is the two of them and the way they play off each other and the way they improve each other, don't go see this one. Because I just think it all falls apart because they put, a man right in the middle of it and make it about him. And that sucks. Like it just does. Right. Like even when you get to that beautiful few shots where it's like they had a time when they were happy together, you're like, yeah, and you ruined it, movie. How dare you? So anyway, don't be too excited about them.
It's called dramatic conflict, Greg. It's what every story needs.
And again, not to disagree with Greg, I would say I don't know if that's enough reason to not see it, because after a few minutes they forget about that conflict and they move on to something else.
I think we need to move to spoiler mode because we're getting
okay. Yeah, it's dangerous out here. All right, so if you have not seen Wicked for Good,
bless you.
How many? Wow, Greg, rein it in.
Please write in and let us know how you felt about Zootopia 2 instead.
It's True. Or Rental Family. Like, what are the other movies that were out? A bunch of people went to go see Hamnet. Anyway, we digress. So if you do not want this movie spoiled, we're about to go big time spoiler mode. So go see the movie if you haven't had a chance yet. Rejoin just so you know what we're talking about. We've been very cagey. And yet very snarky at the same time. So, and then rejoin us for the rest of the conversation. Click.
First of all, I would say the most important development of this movie is the confirmation that shiz from Shiz University is used as an expletive in the Land of Oz. And I think that was very important to learn. But I would say the thing that surprised me the most about this was how quickly we got to the Wizard of Oz part. Like how quickly it was like, well, I guess we better get a tornado going. We need a twister, NTM. And we that happened a lot faster. And again, I do understand that Act 2s do act fast. But I thought that it was going to be like the last 10 minutes of it would be, by the way, the Wizard of Oz is happening now, and not like basically after like maybe 20 minutes, we were going to start to run in parallel with we see the back of Dorothy's head. And we're like, oh, all right, we're in it. So that was a big surprise for me. I can say something mean again.
Any
too,
other
if you
surprises?
Want me to, but I don't want to do it every time.
I mean, Greg, what specifically offended you so much? Now that we could talk spoilers.
All right, let's start with like most offensive choice that I think they need to be called out for. So number one, the musical got a lot of like, we're so wonderful, we have diverse casting. The movie got a lot of credit for, we have cast our first wheelchair-bound actress into the wheelchair-bound character. Look, I'm foolish. It did not occur to me that is the Wicked Witch of the East. And then they convert her to a witch for no good reason very quickly, so that character, who they are so proud of her disability, is the character whose legs roll up at the start of Wizard of Oz. Like, that's the one thing we know about this character. I find this so offensive and so awful that I don't even know if you could air this, but I'm so mad that like, oh, okay, well, we'll just have her legs roll up in her socks and disappear under the house. I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I can't. So, okay. Let me take one for the podcast. That can be after the credits. So I found that this movie's treatment of the Wizard of Oz was just plain silly. It tried so hard to go out of its way to fit every character we've met into some role in the Wizard of Oz in a way that doesn't make sense at all. Maybe chief amongst these is Fiyero is the Scarecrow, but according to the plot line of the movie, the Scarecrow doesn't get set out in the field until after Dorothy has already left Munchkinland. So this idea that when I watch Wizard of Oz 1939, what a great movie, the Scarecrow's been suffering out in the field for a long time. Dorothy comes and saves him and they have an adventure together. The Tin Man is frozen in the woods and needs his oil can to get unfrozen and taken on an adventure. And it's wonderful and it's magical. These characters were in this situation for 5 minutes, and then this girl that they only show the back of her head rolls up and just takes them on an adventure to solve their problems that they never really even had. I don't even get the if I only had a brain in this context, right? And the heart is like a throwaway line. These are like the core parts of Wizard of Oz, and they're so wonderful and they're so magical. And this movie just plays fast and loose with them to make you smile because you can feel good, you remember it. And it sacrifices all the like resonance in favor of cheap thrills. And I don't know if it's clear or not, but it really bothered me when it came to this movie.
No.
Now, Greg, was it clearer to you that Elphaba's sister would be the Wicked Witch of the East when she turned to a mirror and said, "I'm the Wicked Witch of the East"? Did that make it a little bit easier to follow? Did that help you? I will say I read about the musical after I got home, and apparently it is worse in the musical because it's the shoes. She casts a spell in the shoes that makes them go from the traditional book silver to the movie red. That helps her walk. And so it isn't that she's flying, it's that she's walking. She gets out of her wheelchair and walks. And then when the house falls on her, her legs can't walk anymore. And that's why they shrivel, because the shoes are taken off. It's not because the house falls on her, because Dorothy takes the shoes off. So then they get withered back. So it's even more ableist in the play, apparently. So I don't know. Small blessings. At least she was flying. Does that help?
So I'm not necessarily gonna argue with whatever you're saying. However, it's here's my attempt to be like, there, it's okay. You cannot think of the Wizard of Oz and the Wicked story as contiguous. Like there's no continuity between them. You have to just let that whole idea go. What might help you is to think of, because, the story Wicked, especially the first film, like the part of it we get in the first film, is all about rhetoric and narrative and creating how powerful that is in spite of the truth, right? So I think this works much better, or at least will make you less angry, if you think of the movie The Wizard of Oz as sort of like the child's fairy tale or folklore version of the events. And then Wicked sort of being the dark, gritty truth, right? Because the subtitle of the musical, which doesn't appear always, I feel like, but is the untold story of the Witches of Oz, right? So the idea of like, this is the real history, not what gets put in the history books, kind of. So that's what I offer up. I don't know if that's good enough for anything. But that's how I make peace with it.
The version of it I would say is what, and sorry to always make everything related to Star Wars, but I remember a friend of mine who really liked Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, but recognized the flaws in it and the bad connections, like, oh, so Anakin Skywalker made C-3PO? Like, that seems weird. And that feels a lot in line with some of the comments you have, Greg, of like, so the Scarecrow was in the field for like a minute and a half and then Dorothy came by. Oh, okay. And he was just like, I'm making a motion to sever. Like, you don't need to sever these movies. You don't need to think they're connected if you don't want to. If you want to think of them as all part of the same world, fine. But it's also okay to just be like, The Wizard of Oz is its own thing. It exists in its own little bubble. Just like Jaws, just like Jurassic Park. Don't think about the sequels. Don't think about the follow-ups. Don't think about the reboots. Just be like, it's its own thing. It's okay. And this is trying to tell a different story. And you don't have to have it affect the way you think about the old movie. You just can, you can look at this and enjoy it or not enjoy it to the degree that you can. And I'm kind of with Greg. Every time there was some explanation like that, I was like, this is pretty bad. This is bad. It's not a good choice. It's doing a bad job of explaining what happens in the other movie. Except for the bubble machine, the bubble flyer. That was really fun. I liked Ariana Grande playing and popping the bubble a bunch of times. That was fun.
The way she's like, no, no way. Get out of here. It's
I had so much hope then at that point in the movie. I was like, this is great. This is going good.
Antonio, what do you think about all this?
Well, I want to go back to something that Greg said, I think, before we got into spoiler mode, because it hits on something that I think Jen, I think I understand that explanation as for why it can play a little fast and loose with like the Wizard of Oz. Like that makes some sense to me. But I think it can't explain away the other Nessa Rose problem, which is that for a movie and and source material that refreshingly put like two strong, complicated women at its center, it undoes a lot of goodwill by making Nessa Rose as pathetic as possible in her like possessive obsession with Bach. And then because I had even forgotten about like this character and I don't remember in the musical like disliking her as much as I disliked her in the film. And then on top of that, again, to point to Greg's comment earlier, that competition over a man, over Fiyero, position our two heroines against one another in a way that felt like dizzying in its in how quickly again it moves in and out, and how all of that is sort of handled or not handled. Um, I'd read that there was like a love scene with Fiyero and Glinda that was cut. Um, that I don't know that it would. I don't think that anything would have like salvaged any of this. I think it probably actually could have made it even worse. The idea of like in 1 minute like he's making out with her and about to marry her, and then the next minute he's in bed with it, just like the strangest, like unsexiest love scene I've ever seen in my life. Right? Like I had my kids there, and like normally I'd be like, oh no, the kids love scenes, they don't like love scenes, but whatever was on the screen felt like whatever this is, it's not gonna mess up anything for development. This is this is
Ouch.
Well,
not even the cardigan.
When they,
no,
yeah,
none of it.
when she says, "Let me slip into something more comfortable,"
Yeah.
it's not a cardigan.
Yeah, there was so much like I think that eventually it sort of like won me over at various points, but it took a while before it got there, and it was it you know Greg's review, he called it sort of like a slog, and it felt like that for a bit for me, and a lot of it was just like these moments of just sort of these clunky like plot points and moments that I didn't remember from the first film, which I felt like moved pretty quickly. The other thing is that I think is important to highlight is that just like so in a musical, sometimes things don't make sense, and a really good song can just like can spirit you through it. You'll be fine, right? And there just wasn't that. I thought I kept wondering and waiting for like, oh, but two original songs are coming up. These might be Oscar contenders. I can't wait. And then
I mean, there's still going to be spoilers for later, but there's still going to be Oscar contenders.
It's true, but they weren't great. I didn't think they were great, and I didn't think that they added much. In fact, I had even forgotten. I was just like, was this in the original whatever? Because I can't, one of them, the one where the Ariana Grande new solo, that did feel like an add-on, but only because like it wasn't really moving the plot any. So I was like, oh, this was an easy add-in here. And again, I thought Ariana Grande was excellent, and I thought she performed. Like both her and Cynthia Erivo did what they could, right? And like and it's still enjoyable to watch. But yeah, I think that there was a lot about the first Wicked um, where even plot things that I didn't enjoy so much, or performances that I didn't enjoy so much, I could forget really quickly because Popular comes on, or because Defying Gravity, or The Wizard and I, and you're just sort of swept up in that. And there's nothing quite like when a movie musical hits, and when there's like a song that just is just booming, and then these incredible visuals happen on screen, and then the audience is watching. There's nothing quite like that. And there's nothing quite like that in this movie, because the songs are not as good, with the exception of For Good, which I know PT, based on his facial expressions, didn't seem to like that song in particular, but I thought that one was at least executed well.
It isn't that I didn't like that song, but I had heard, I think, from you and also other people, there's one like great song. There's 3 great songs in the first act. There's only one in the second act, and the movie ended and I didn't know which song people meant. That's all I will say. So it wasn't that I thought it was bad, but it did not stand out to me compared to any other songs, except that was one of the 3 that got a full performance. So that's good for that song. I think I actually like the one that starts with Jeff Goldblum more. Was it The Wonderful Mr. Wonderful? Which I didn't think was like well performed, but I was like, well, they're all having fun. Like stuff's happening here, which again might have been that I had more positivity earlier in the movie. And I was just happy that this seemed to be like a song that was going to last more than a minute and a half. So yeah, by the time they got to For Good, if it hadn't been the subtitle of the movie, I wouldn't have had any suspicion that's supposed to be the good song. That's my fault. Don't hold that against the movie. Anyone else?
So I am in agreement that in the Broadway musical Wicked, the second act is so much weaker musically, just like on average, because the songs kind of like come and go and they're like mostly forgettable. I will say though that in this film, Cynthia Erivo's performance of No Good Deed Goes Unpunished I thought was very powerful. It was just too short. Like sort of the thing PT was saying, it like she had a few refrains and then it was like, oh, we're done. We moved on to something else. Again, this is my other musical defense is I actually really liked this movie. The big noticeable, not change, but thing I saw it was trying to emphasize differently than maybe the stage play, because it's 2 movies as opposed to 2 acts of one show, is they really tried to make this movie a mirror image of the first in terms of the arc that Glinda goes on. Because we get the whole backstory of her childhood, and there's one shot where she's looking in a mirror and she sees the childhood version of herself, which is exactly a mirror image, because around in terms of when the story happens, of when Elphaba's falling in the first movie, and it flashes to an image of her as a child. She's looking at her childhood self, right? And so I actually kind of like that, and to me that made the reprise songs, even though they were kind of too short, and shouldn't really count as as songs unto themselves. But I did like how those moments felt like the twisted, bizarro mirror image of the version that would be like. So when Ariana Grande sings "I'm Not That Girl," right? It's like, oh, it's her turn to sing it now. Or whenever a character sings like "You Deserve Each Other" in the first movie, that's always sung as a very hopeful thing, right? Or like we're in love and everything's happy. Whereas the version of it in this movie has a very different connotation because everyone's a mess and everything's falling apart in terms of the relationships in this movie. So I appreciated that part.
The filming of that bubble song, the filming of the bubble song was very good. Like I thought like that was a highlight of the visual storytelling, I guess, of this, when it was like the mirrors and you wouldn't sometimes like the reflection would become her. Like that was nice.
Yeah.
I didn't.
And it's a good callback to like their dorm room where she has way too much stuff and you're like, oh wow, she's given complete free reign here in terms of like she's upgraded her closet to have much more stuff in it. So my next question, in retrospect, do you think this should have actually just been one movie? Would that have helped anything?
I'm going to put this out there. Could it just be the first Wicked movie? And like, do we really need anything that happens in this movie? And just have that movie end, and then it sets us up for like the Wizard of Oz.
Because that whole first movie is setting up all the terrible things that happen in this movie.
Terrible's the right word. No, that's not fair. But like the Wizard of Oz happens. Like that's all terrible for most of our characters. I don't know. I don't know.
So I guess the answer is no to my question. It would not have helped. You just don't want it at all.
I thought the first movie was good.
I do think that this film, having the burden of being a standalone film in the theater, does it a disservice. So honestly, it feels to me that part of the crimes of this second film is that we rush to make room for nothing or for things that don't seem to matter. So everything you said is true, and it is part of kind of musical structure. But like, there's the tradition in musical where the first song back after the intermission is supposed to be that kind of super fun song, but that doesn't actually change the plot because the smokers are coming in late. And like this movie doesn't like fit those tropes either. And so it's like we rush through time and we jump around and Nessa Rose becomes a monster seemingly in one day because who knows why. And then we like just languish in these really long kind of everything you've thought was happening is happening moments, right? I mean, in my list of crimes on this movie, I haven't even gotten down to the hole in the ground that leads to another planet. I'd like to unpack what that is, especially if it only exists in Dorothy's consciousness, which it should only exist in Dorothy's consciousness, subconscious. But
there you go with that continuity again, Greg. Come on.
I don't. Well. I mean, there were like 10 responses to your thought. I just can't do what you said because I think this movie demands, right? This movie wants you to make these connections. The power of Wicked, the musical, as I understand it, is the fact that we can flip this on its head and show you how the people you think are wicked, who are evil, it's false and they are human and they have wants and needs. And that's like the beauty of what Wicked is supposed to be, as I understand it. And so it wants us to be playing those games. And it's not even like you can just sever it and pretend Wizard of Oz doesn't exist. I understood what you both said clearly, but the film is not wanting you to do that. The film is not even just saying like, this is how it happens. It's like, you have to understand the events of Wizard of Oz to get the jokes it's saying, like Linda saying like, oh, that girl's a lot, or whatever she says. You have to laugh at that by knowing the Wizard of Oz and by knowing what Dorothy's been through. And I mean, I won't keep ranting, but so I can't sever it because the film is asking me not to, and it's asking us to kind of put that together. So to the point of whether this could be, I mean, I think if this were one movie, if you gave it the unhobbiting treatment and merged it back into one movie, I think that would be better. But I still think there's just so much weight for nothingness. And I completely agree with Antonio's point that the problem is the fun is gone. The first one, I think its crimes could be ignored easily because it was so much fun. Here I'm like debating what the like racial demographic of munchkins are. Like, are they dwarves in D&D world? Are they elves? Are they also human? Like, are they a separate race? Because like they're implying that is Munchkin Land a separate polis within the larger construct of Oz? Nobody should ever ask these questions, but the movie is like imploring you to do so. So it becomes see. I had a cogent point, Jen, and then you said I should just keep severing it. Okay. Now I'm just grumpy again. Well,
you perfectly set up my next question. Which I know you don't know what it is.
What are munchkins and why?
No, I know. Well, okay, all right.
Taxonomy of munchkins.
But my next question is going to be, was there anything John M. Chu could have done in adapting this to avoid all of the things that Greg's angry about? You know what I mean? Like, could there have been big changes made to this to make it so everyone was happy with it?
Let Steven Spielberg direct it.
What?
At one point, Steven Spielberg was going to direct this.
Oh.
Let a better director direct it. I mean, all due respect to John Chu.
Ouch.
Well, Steven Spielberg's a better director than basically like 4 people.
Okay, that's fair.
Everyone but 4 people. So,
that's a very specific number.
I don't know. It sounded more fun than 5.
Don't answer that. It's going to derail us too much. But continue.
Yes, as I've thought about it while Greg was ranting and I was thinking about it, I only have one potential answer for what you're looking for, and it's an answer that you and Antonio and maybe even Greg would not like, and that would be don't adapt the musical, adapt the book, and don't make it a musical, and tell this story without songs. I don't think that's a good idea because everyone loves the musical.
Can I?
But
ask,
that would be the way to keep the story more focused and shorter, where you could tell this in 2.5 or 3 hours. Because you'd cut out all the music, but you'd also be able to say like, okay, if we're moving things around and we're trying to like do more of an adaptation, we are not beholden to fans of this thing that's been a pop culture monolith for so long. I don't think that would work, but that would be a thing to do.
I actually had a question in that regard. It's my understanding that the book is very different than the musical, that, fans of the first half of this musical went and bought the book last December and were wildly disappointed. Does anybody have a clear sense of how it's different? I mean, yes, no songs because it's a book, but I think the story is very different from my understanding.
The only thing I've heard about it is that it's not kid appropriate and it's much spicier.
Heyo.
Like in terms of
now I'm on Team PT. I'm in. Let's do it. Spicy Wicked.
Let's go.
Like the complaint that Antonio had earlier about the Elphaba Fiyero scene, apparently not a problem in the book. That's all. But also, like, to be honest, I've been afraid to look it up because people, like, when they told me, were like, just don't. It will scar you. And so I was like, what? Like, what could possibly be in this book? So I don't know. If listeners have read the book and they want to tell us, please tell us in a way that won't traumatize us. But yeah, that's a long way of being like, I don't know, Greg. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Antonio, did you have any adaptation ideas?
I don't know. I do think that if it were not a musical, then the fan base that you're trying to tap here does. Like, I think that the producers would just be like, then why are we doing this?
It's a disaster. It's a terrible idea.
Yeah. So I think that it probably would have been better to stand as like maybe as one movie. I think that it doesn't. I think it's still a dizzying pace in Act Two. So I think that what that would force is then actual adaptation of Act Two, and actual like cutting out a lot of like elements and streamlining in a way that that would that could still make the film make sense, but not basically put a magnifying glass on the problems that like Greg and PT are, I think, rightly pointing out, right? And so I think that that turning something that was never intended to be a standalone thing like story, to expand that, it seemed like a mistake in the initial conception. Even Jen, right? Like when they announced it, that it was going to be in two parts, both of us were just like, what? How is that going to work? But again, it's a really difficult task when you're dealing with a built-in fan base that is expecting basically what they love on stage to just be on screen, with just like really amazing actors like Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande doing the music. So, I don't know. It's like, from a commercial standpoint, obviously it's doing just fine, and it did exactly what the people who invested in it wanted it to do. From an artistic standpoint, I think the only way that it could have been like a success act, like Act One, Act Two, would be to figure out how to make Act Two work, but still be in the same experience as that sort of magical first act, I think.
I wonder if part of the, well, I know this, part of the problem, I think, for me, I won't speak for all other audience members, but like, the book was written in the mid 90s. The show came out, started in 2002, 2003. There's been a lot of prequels since then. There's been a lot of tropes that have borrowed from this, as well as some other big sort of things that were like, we're going to go back and tell the earlier version. Going back even to like, Godfather Part 2, and I'm sure, plenty of earlier things before that. But, I think there is, for me, a little bit of kind of like, yep, here we go. Like, here comes the stuff where it's tying together with the original. And I think was something that may have felt really unique in between 1995 and 2003, and like exciting, and like, we're getting this different version, like with new perspective on this story, just sort of feels like, how different is this from like Maleficent 3? Like, it's just kind of like, okay, like we've seen the story from the perspective of the bad guy before. So I wonder if, again, and I'm saying this with the knowledge that like, torches and pitchforks from the people who just love the musical, is a version of this that works better as one movie. Like, we've got Cynthia Erivo and we have Ariana Grande. Let's just have the main focus be their relationship. And obviously we still have these other characters, but like, let's not get this like love triangle thing going just to set him up as the Scarecrow. Let's not have her sister have this prominent role just to set up that she's wearing the shoes or the guy that she wants to get with is going to become the Tin Man. Like, let's just like skip a lot of that. Like, have it kind of get to For Good. Have For Good be the end of the movie. And like, take out before that a lot of the Wizard of Oz parallels, and just be about, these are two people, they don't trust each other, they become friends. One of them one of them becomes the scapegoat, and they try to navigate, but we know that's not right. But we want to be friends, but we can't, because there's this dynamic and they have this different view of the wizard. Like, I think just focusing on that, they could have made that one movie and kept the songs everyone likes, and not lost like too much in that, and then maybe would have brought Greg in even further, because they would have not had so many Wizard of Oz connections. But again, I think ultimately this is the Harry Potter movie problem of, I don't want that. I want the thing that I read. I want the thing that I know already to be on the screen, and I want to see the thing I've thought about before. So why are you changing it? So I think they did it the right way for what they wanted to do, and they're being blessed with success for it.
Your mentioning of one which sacrificing or becoming the scapegoat for the other is a good segue into what I wanted to talk about for thesis, please. But first, I just want to mention while you were talking, did look up the Wikipedia summary for the book. I only made it to the third paragraph. My goodness. There's not a lot in common in terms of the plot. And it's like much trashier in terms of what happens.
Wait, but before we thesis, please, can I just pitch my reconstruction?
Oh yeah, go for it.
Little Women-ness. I think that's the way to do it. I think you take the two acts and you intercut between them, which they almost do with the frame narrative, which is oddly the same in the two movies. But like, have the conflict happening right at the beginning. Don't have the conflict be over. Have it be happening, and then have their big fighting kind of stuff, and then flash back to when they were pals, and then other times, show them meeting these characters that are now these huge ways. That's how I would do it. I would Little Women it, which I'm coining as a verb.
Or Hamnet.
But Jen, what's the thesis, please?
Oh no, I don't have the music ready. Okay, here.
Thesis, please.
So I wanted to talk about specifically the messaging of the film, and if that is changed at all, not necessarily for good, but now that we have the whole story, and in particular, there's a scene towards the end of the movie where they're in the castle. Elphaba is about to get the bucket of water dumped on her, and she tells Glinda that she is in fact limited, right, playing upon the lyric that we hear lots of times about being your ambitions being unlimited, right, or whatever you can do being unlimited, and that she is limited but Glinda is not, and therefore they shouldn't revise, like she should let the falsehood of her being the Wicked Witch stand and not correct the record to clear her name, and then she just goes into exile with all the other animals that have kind of given up the fight. And so, like, does that change sort of the thesis of this movie, or what it's trying to say about the wizard and who's wicked and who's good, and history, like recorded history versus the truth, like all those things that we would have been talking about for the first movie?
I'll try to tackle that first. You stumped us, or maybe it's just getting late. So I go back to what I said a few minutes ago in one of too many rants. I apologize, but I think that to me the power of this is supposed to be about perspective, and is supposed to be about the way our perspective gets manipulated, right? And I think because of who became president in between these films, they have, in the press tour, they have played down the anti-fascist label kind of narratives within this. But to me, what you're asking is like, that's part of the power of this story, is to help people recognize when they're being manipulated by those in power and get them to kind of shake off those narratives. And so I have a lot of trouble with a couple moves at the end, surprise, because I do think that's undermined by, yes, I'm willing to sacrifice my life, but just kidding. I have a secret trap door where I hit a little girl earlier, and now I'm going to pop out and run off with my people's sexiest man alive into Jupiter or wherever. So, like, I do think the narrative is hurt by it not actually being a full sacrifice, right? It's like a little, it's a little self-serving, and I'm not here to quibble. Again, when that trap door opened, that's when people in my audience, I heard noises I've never heard, like oh my,
of Wicked, right? Like all of those things were already embedded. All of those ideas were already there, and so what are you looking for in a second act or a sequel, other than just like finishing the plot? You're looking for something new or a deepening of those themes, and that doesn't happen. I don't think that happens here. right? Like we've talked about reprise. Like it feels like just a reprise of the same themes, but then an awkward retrofitting of all of this other like mythology into it, so that like it just feels like the characters can't like breathe, that they just have to like move on to the next thing and to the next plot point. And unfortunately to like the next song to just like finish it, right? So yeah, I mean, like that's another part of what makes this sort of like a uniquely, for me, like even on stage, a uniquely disappointing musical is because you come back feeling energized at the end of Act One, and it feels like all of the goodwill and all those sort of like interesting ideas don't shift or change or culminate in something that feels worthy of like a second act, or that feels like it's doing something with the energy generated from everything that happened in the first like hour and a half.
So I would agree that the story makes the characters' iconography more at the expense of being actual characters. And yeah, I would agree. Like if I were to just totally rewrite the musical, that's the first thing I would go for. I'd be like, let's get rid of this stuff. Right? So again, I'm not going to argue with everything you're complaining about. I'm just more tolerant of it, I suppose. But to me, and this is going to be my, once an episode, I have to have like here's a crazy idea. Go with me on this. Maybe I've spent that already with my like, Greg, just don't think too much about it advice. But to me, the one valuable contribution of the new songs, and it's specifically the No Place Like Home, which is the least memorable song I've ever heard, possibly. Like musically speaking, it's just like, I'm like, what is this even? So it's not like I like the song, but the lyrics. So if listeners are keeping track, I've already said that the song For Good makes me cry every time. So I did cry during the movie during that song, but that's only one time. I said I cried 3 times. The second one I can name is during the No Place Like Home song, because the lyrics are so very clearly about America as an idea, right? Because it says like, what do you do when the place that you call home hates you? And what do you do when, like, why is that still valuable? Why? Because all the animals are like, let's get the hell out of here, Elphaba. What are you doing? Like, let's just go. Who needs these people, right? And she's like, well, that poses an interesting question for her, where she's like, well, why do I want to stay? Why do I want to stay and fight? And she says something about like the idea of Oz to her is still valuable as a dream, right? And that she wants to help make that a reality, right? And that's why she keeps fighting. So I just like totally lost it during this song, because I was just like, that's how I feel right now. Like it was really bad. It was bad. But it got to me. And plus there were cute animals all around. Like, I'm an easy target. The theme of my movie viewing this week was like, put cute sentient animals in your movie and I will overlook a lot. But so that plus the ending where she sort of explained to Glinda, look, here's what we got to do. I've come to the even though I was really stubborn and wanted to stay and fight, I've come to the realization that I am limited, right, in my power, ultimately, because of all these external things, right? And so I think the movie ends up actually being about allyship, because then the burden gets placed back onto Glinda, where like what she can do, what like she needs to carry on the legacy of Elphaba in terms of making things right, and that is ultimately actually her responsibility because she has all the privilege and all the power. So I don't know if that justifies adding a song that no one will remember and might get nominated for an Oscar, but that's how this is me bending over backwards to try to make all of this work.
I like it. I will also note I got emotional during that song for the same reason.
Okay.
So I will give you that. Yeah, I won't say more because next thing I was going to say was something bad about the movie, and I feel like there's enough. There's enough.
All right. So I wanted to move us into rhetorical situation real quick. We might have covered some of this already, but we'll see how far it goes. So the rhetorical situation in which we look at a film through the lens of our academic experience. So all four of our regular co-hosts are writing professors. We like to have the section of the episode dedicated to making connections to our experience as scholars and teachers. In the teaching of writing, the rhetorical situation refers to any contextual factors that influence composing and interpretation. It seems to me like the obvious thing to talk about, which we've already been talking about this whole time, is the intertextuality factor. Greg has made his case in terms of why this is like not a good like intertext with the Wizard of Oz. But the thing I really wanted to talk about specifically is the choice to show all of the characters like the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion, Coleman Domingo, wildly underused. I was like, why did we even make this a press thing? Like announcing that he was cast as because he's in it for like 3 seconds. And you could barely tell it's him. Anyway, but like, why do we see all of those characters from The Wizard of Oz except for Dorothy? Is it purely because that's crossing some kind of line? Is it because all those other 3 characters, according to the plot of this story, are from this story and not from the Wizard, and Dorothy's the only one who doesn't originate from the Wicked storyline? You know what I mean? Like, so why is that the choice? Why do we not have a scene where we see Dorothy's face?
Practically, I think it's because it just would be too complicated.
Too weird.
Well, because it would be like, do you have to cast someone who looks like Judy Garland? Should they look different from Judy Garland? So you can say, yes, this is a totally different story. But then what happens when people are like, well, she doesn't look like Judy Garland?
Well, we do that all the time, though. People just have to deal with it. They're making another Hunger Games movie recasting all of the characters.
As younger people. Yeah. Right? Finally. Do you want to know where all the Hunger Games stuff came from? Do you want to know where that bow, who made that bow? But yeah, so I mean, I think practically that's what it was, where it was just sort of like, why bother? Like, let's not play with it. Like, if we just show only the back of her head, only her feet, only a silhouette, we don't have to answer that question. We don't have to make that decision, and not because they're like afraid to make a decision, but we don't have to force the audience to step out of the movie to think about their memories of another movie. That said, I also think, having fully supported Jen, your idea of Greg, just keep this movie separate, and bring in the motion to sever. This is the decision that makes it the hardest to do that, because it's very clear this is Judy Garland's Dorothy. Like, this is, we don't see her face, so you don't, either we don't have to like create a version that looks like her or whatever. Is like, no, we're seeing, this is Back to the Future Part 2. We are seeing the events of another movie from a different perspective, but it is actually that movie. So I think it's a fair choice to do that. And I think everything that what you were saying about like, well, she's not a character here. She's just like it's part of the fun in theory is that she's not important. Like, she's just like a background person from like some other story. That's not our story. Our story is about these other people. And so we don't need to see her, and it's not important to get a look at her face.
And I will interject that I don't know what difference this makes, but in the stage show, any reference to anything The Wizard of Oz is for comedic relief. Like, the audience laughs.
I see. That is interesting. But I will say, I wonder if it, that choice, which again, I think makes sense. And I think, again, considering the alternatives probably is the right one, I do think it invites the complaints that Greg has, and that, I mean, other people may also feel, of trying to draw a parallel to one of the greatest and most beloved and timeless movies of all time. So,
which Antonio has still not seen, right?
Just now's the time. Everyone. You got to see how the story ends, or how the story really was, or how the story maybe wasn't. I don't know.
So, next question to throw in the mix. You're still welcome to talk about the other question, but do we think, because the rhetorical situation, intertextuality, contextual factors, from a movie making business perspective, it is in Universal's best interest to make more of these movies, right? To make more movies set in Oz as a part of, like, so to what extent is Wicked a franchise now? And what is their next? What is, if you're Universal, what's your next move, or what do you anticipate is their next move?
I don't know if you caught this, but the head of Universal, I don't have the quote in front of me, but essentially says like they have the moral imperative to continue expanding this universe. Like he said something so grandiose, like, you know, it would be insulting to fans. It would be a grave disservice to not. And I believe one or both Universal Studios is getting a Wicked land, which means that's the rule at Disney. As soon as they built Toy Story Land, we just had to keep going after the perfect film Toy Story 3 and just keep expanding. And I think that's what you're going to have to expect for Wicked. I missed the first question, so I will just say I heard they just couldn't get Renee Zellweger's number met, so they couldn't put her into to that. So I'm going to combine my answers to the two. I do think that, to me, as I've already articulated, the power of Wicked, as I understood it to be, is that you are retelling this story from the new perspective and questioning, when you're just told somebody is evil, whether you should trust that or not. I think the fundamental problem with that is that Dorothy kills the Wicked Witch. And if you've now made us completely sympathetic, you've accidentally turned Dorothy into the villain, right? And so I think if you that is just baked into the recipe here. And so whatever amount you show Dorothy, you have to start introducing those really difficult questions into the audience's mind, even before you get to casting. I also think that falls into the column of I still have a lot of questions, and I had some of these after Wicked 1 of like, wait, so Dorothy is knocked unconscious and dreams this, but this is very clear that this is like a real thing that happened to her now. Like, she was brought here by Madame Marble, who hasn't even gotten a name shout out all episode, right? Did you guys know Michelle Yeoh was in this movie? Did you know that?
Academy Award.
I haven't heard you defend that yet. But I will just say, so like, and then the questions, like, you know, I think about my favorite thing when I was little is Dorothy wakes up and all the people on the farm are now the people from Oz who she's seen, right? Like, those actors being there and that kind of cool, you were there and you were there and you were there, makes like no sense now. And so in my opinion, the more you concentrate on Dorothy, the harder those questions get forced to the front of mind and the more difficult it is. So knowing we're just going to do more of these, I think you need to just get totally away from the Wizard of Oz, and you need to do like Shiz University, the new class or whatever, but you have to stay totally away from everything that's established here. It seems to me they would be backing up a Brinks truck to Ariana Grande and saying, can we do the first year? Can we do The Crown, but Glinda's Rule over 60 years of Oz in the Emerald City? I mean, because that's what's going to get people back. I don't know that they'll come back for the Cowardly Lions version of events, or, you know, that
we just have to wait 20 years and then Ariana Grande will come back.
Yeah. Or Bowen Yang needs to finish up on SNL, and then they'll do his spinoff, just his character, which in the live concert, he liked pointing out that people don't even know his character's name, which totally accurate. It's just Bowen Yang.
It's just a workplace comedy with him and the other assistant for Glinda.
He does have a moment in this where he's like, I love my work. Like, he's like, because he's like a PR person, right? Basically.
But so you guys didn't sit through the entire credits to see the very end when Jeff Goldblum lands back in America and then James Franco comes out of the shadows and announces the Oz Initiative? No, they didn't. You didn't see that? Okay, that was my one joke for your question, Jen. Greg gave a good answer.
Thank you. All right, I think maybe if no one else says anything, I think maybe it's time for Oscars watch. I've tortured you long enough. So, if you need a little refresher, the first Wicked film, Wicked, received 10 Oscar nominations.
Oof.
Best Picture, actress, supporting actress, costume design, editing, makeup and hairstyling, production design, original score, sound, and visual effects. It won 2 of those, costume and production design. How much of this is likely to repeat now that we have seen this movie? Oh, the silence is
Let's give Antonio first crack at it. He always has good notes. Give us some hope, Antonio.
I think Ariana Grande can repeat in supporting actress. I'm not sure about Cynthia Erivo in lead actress. I don't think it's going to repeat. I mean, it's making a ton of money, so I guess it's possible with 10 slots for picture. But I think it's very vulnerable in picture. If it couldn't make director, if part 1 couldn't make it into director, I don't see part 2 being making it into director. Was it in adapted screenplay last year? Then no.
Yeah, no.
Okay. It didn't make it to screenplay. No.
Okay. Then
it would that's the category that it was eligible in, but it didn't actually get. I think from what I remember, score was the big one that people were like, "Huh," because isn't this mostly recycled music from the musical?
Yeah.
Especially with Dune Part 2 not being allowed because it had recycled too much. That was some of us complained.
I think original song. It has an original song, 2 original songs. So I think one or perhaps both could make it in just because it's just the sheer visibility of it and whatever. But I think maybe at best half of what part 1 did is possible here. With Ariana Grande maybe being the best chance at a win this year. What do you all think?
I mean, I think costume design could still pull out a win. I don't know, off the top of my head, what's definitely, I mean, we've got like Hamnet is in that like zone, that region of time of a story that people are like, oh, from history, good. And they like that, but I could see it winning costume design again. I mean, it's hard because like it's clouded by the fact that I'm like, well, this movie's just really not as good as the first one. So how much of it is going to be people disagree with me and they think, no, this is actually quite good and this deserves a best picture nomination, versus got to give the people what they want and the people are going to go and see this. I left the movie thinking like, I would have assumed Wicked for Good going in was locked in to a best picture slot. And now I'm like, it's possible if people like Avatar enough that they're like, okay, Avatar's the blockbuster, we're fine. We've got Sinners in here too, and One Battle is like an action movie too. Like, we're good. And that means that Wicked might not get in, which I, again, would not have assumed before. If this movie gets nominated for score, that's terrible, because I can't off the top of my head name 5 movies that are better this year, but I'm sure if I looked at the list, I would quickly be able to get to 5 movies that are better. I thought the score was actually not good. Like, when I was hearing music that wasn't going into a song, I was like, what's happening? Why is there music happening right now? Like, what is this trying to do? So I didn't care for that. I wouldn't say score. I'm curious, and I will throw this. I'll throw this out there. I will let Greg have a say, but I'm also sort of looking to Jen because I'm curious which of these 2 songs. I know there's one that's supposed to be like being pushed a little bit more, and people are thinking, even before the movie came out, they were like, this is the song. And I don't remember why. Is it because Cynthia Erivo co-wrote one or what? Or they just thought the song would play better? But I'm curious which of the 2 songs has a better chance, and what are the chances looking like in Punditland for 2 of these? So remember, for a while it was K-pop Demon Hunters, 2 Sinners, 2 Wicked, and then how do we fit Diane Warren and who gets popped out was the sort of big question about song. Jen, so what about instruct us?
So most pundits that have one song have Girl in the Bubble. And I think that's likely because if Ariana is such a strong contender in supporting, I think if, again, neither of the new songs are particularly memorable, musically speaking. However, as we've said, I think, over the course of our conversation, that the scene in her acting during that song is very good. right? We get so much interiority into Glinda, into what she's thinking and feeling, and how she's torn and she doesn't know what to do, right? And how she like feels so disillusioned, where she's getting everything she thought she wanted, and like it's very well done. Her character very well done in this movie. I think that is partially by design, because this is supposed to be her movie as a mirror image, as I said earlier, to Elphaba being the main character in the first movie. So there's a little bit of category fraud going on. Anyway, people will remember Ariana Grande's acting in that scene and therefore associate it positively with that song. And I think because of that, it is much more likely, and especially because a lot of people don't like the CG animals in the movie. They didn't like them in Wicked. They don't like them in Wicked for Good. And so that's a prominent visual cue in No Place Like Home. And so I think that's what's going to edge it out one out over the other. It's almost like the new makeup and hairstyling nom to go with an acting nom, but this is the song nom. You could argue that was true for Zoe Saldana last year, right? So that's what I would say at this point. I don't think both are getting in. I think one gets in because we want them at the Oscars. If I had to do original song right now off the top of my head, I would probably say Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters, Girl in the Bubble from Wicked for Good, Zoo, I think is just the name of the song, from Zootopia 2. Oh. Shakira, always a winner. And the Diane Warren song, which I've already forgotten what it is. And I think it's Dear Me, I want to say. And then the big song from Sinners, the big ancestral scene. I'm just not remembering the name of the song off the top of my head, which I feel bad about. But so that would be my 5 if I had to pick right now. Is anything beating Golden? No.
Yeah, I think it's K-pop Demon Hunters all the way through. It made me, so Jen's comments made me think a lot about what's the legacy of Wicked at the Oscars going to be. And I think it is fair or unfair. I think it's kind of be remembered as kind of Ariana Grande's big showcase. And so I think hers is the most likely nomination. And I think everything Jen just said about Girl in the Bubble makes sense, that you'd want to get her on stage, kind of like a I'm Just Ken moment, right? To celebrate that performance, even if it's not going to ultimately win. But I was also thinking about how, they shoehorned in a couple Wicked songs last Oscars just to celebrate that, and a Wiz song, just because we're all forms of Wizard of Oz are good.
Somehow it was happened. 2 songs from the Wiz throughout the course of the night, and only 1 song from Wicked, which is very funny.
So then what I would say is, here's what I hope is the legacy of Wicked at the Oscars. I hope this maybe breaks us away from the let's reward the final part narrative, because I think everything you listed as what it got nominated for in part 1, a lot of those would have been really great wins. I would have loved to see Cynthia Erivo win. I would have loved to see Ariana Grande win. But now it feels tainted because it's in a lesser film, right? And that it's not as fun. So my dream for the Academy is they forget that narrative of let's just wait till the last one comes out. What I fear the legacy of it might be is, I think there's a contingent of people, and they aren't just women, but they're probably primarily women, who watched Barbie and were like, can't wait for the Oscars to finally award Barbie, and got almost nothing. And then they watched Wicked Part 1 and they're like, can't wait till the Oscars show Wicked Part 1. And it got almost nothing. And I think that's probably some of the crowd who's still really excited about Wicked Part 2. And if the narrative over the next month and a half becomes, boy, that movie sucked, and everybody who's smart thinks it sucked, I think that really hurts the Oscars long term. And maybe I've participated in it too much tonight, but I just feel like we need the movies and we need the Oscars to be about the really cool art house stuff and the big tent, bring everybody in. And if this is the 3rd time that crowd gets burned, I don't think they come back as strong numbers next year.
I think that's a fair point. Let me put this out there though.
They also love Avatar. You're right. They're all like the fire and ash
look,
heads.
they're all ready for the Na'vi. They're like, Jake Sullivan, where are you? As are we all, of course. We love the fire. We love the ash, don't we, folks? However, what I was going to say was, don't we like? Is it possible that this year that movie isn't Wicked for Good? That movie is K-pop Demon Hunters. Because I was just thinking how the big musical number, though we don't talk about Bruno, the I'm Just Ken, and the Wicked or Wizard of Oz medley, like that's going to be golden, or even just like a medley of K-pop Demon Hunter songs that they're going to perform. I don't think even however much money Wicked for Good is making, and I will just note now, and again I'm being a spoil sport here. After 2 weeks, it has about the same amount of money Wicked for Good does as the original Wicked, but that's because it made more money in the first weekend, the weekend before Thanksgiving, and then had like a regular size drop off. But one of the things with Wicked was it didn't really drop off much at all. It was like 20% drop off. So this is looking more like it might have kind of that like it will fade away in the way that big blockbusters usually do. Wicked didn't do that, so I'd be very curious to see. I think this is going to end up with Wicked for Good being like a sub money maker compared to Wicked. And obviously we can't talk about money for K-pop Demon Hunters because Netflix is what it is. But I just think that that's going to be the like people are pumped. They're going to be like, what's the one movie I saw and loved this year? It's K-pop Demon Hunters.
That's fair.
That's you and your kids watching the Macy's parade, right? Like that's what they tuned in for? Yeah.
Yeah. They were I usually commandeer the television on Thanksgiving morning to watch the parade, and it's more like I'm planted on the couch and people come and go and don't really care. But this year, my kids were like, "We heard there's a derpy balloon. We're gonna sit here until the derpy balloon comes." And then they lost it when they were like, "Wait!" And I had to because I subscribed to Peacock mostly for this. That we actually had the ability to replay. And so I think my kids had me rewind the Huntrix performance at least 5 times. It was big. It was a big deal.
It seemed like a big thing that they had the voice actresses out performing as themselves, but also as the band from the movie, right? Like they were having it both ways. It felt like a big coming out party to make a big push for that. So
yeah, and I guess this is only the second time they performed the song live. Because the first time was on Jimmy Fallon, I want to say. It was on one of the late
Seth Meyers. Because
sorry.
I was watching that episode with my parents, and they were like, what does this mean? Like, and it wasn't the song, it was the intro in the beginning where it's, and here are the people we have. It's these like 3 people playing Huntrix songs from K-pop Demon Hunters. My parents were like, what? What does any of that mean?
And then you played it 5 times for them. They loved it. All That's 5 great. Replays. Yeah.
Well, my dad has a little minion on his desk, so who knows? He could get a little, demon hunter next to him too.
Also, a special shout out to Ken Jeong because he has no reason to Oscar campaign, and so therefore kind of no reason to be there, and was an incredible hype man for the 3 singers who are Huntrix, and it was adorable because they cut they're in the middle of the performance, the camera cuts to him in the audience, and he's just got his phone out and grinning, like videotaping them like a proud dad. It's very cute. I was like, oh, why can't he be nominated for an Oscar or something? Like that would be fun. So I'm saying for the live performance at the Oscars, he better be a part of it because it was it was great. But yeah, actually there was a lot of Thanksgiving. I texted this to all of you, but there's a lot of campaigning. Cynthia Erivo cut the ribbon opening the parade, and then Teyana Taylor had her own float with what looked like her family, who didn't really look like they wanted to be there, and she sang a song. So she's out there.
Yeah,
I think she's probably the major competition for Ariana Grande. What do we think about supporting actress now that we're?
I think that's right.
Don't count out Amy Madigan though. I've heard her name so often still in that conversation.
That's not real, know. Greg. That's not real.
I think it's becoming
that's a pundit fantasy.
I think it's becoming more real the more that like these other movies are coming out and the supporting actress candidates are fading away. So I think it could be possible. There's the 2 performers from Sentimental Value are also in the conversation. I don't know, what kind of energy that could be one of those. If it's like, are we, we want to give Sentimental Value more than one thing, or I forget K-pop Demon Hunters can't be nominated in international, right? Because that was, even though it is K-pop, it is not Korean filmmaking.
I mean, it's made by Sony
because no other choice is the Korean film, of course. I'm realizing I'm thinking out loud as I say this. Anyway, so Cinema Value could win, but it might not win international feature. That could be a place where they're like, we could reward this movie. But it does seem like Tiana Taylor is the presumed favorite as we start to look more and more towards a one battle after another, like Oppenheimer, Everything Everywhere All at Once-esque sort of march through the campaign season.
I was going to say, we're recording this on December 1st. The Gotham Awards just happened. One battle after another cleaned up. And it was one battle. The headline, I think, was one battle after another. And Jafar Panahi's It Was Just an Accident were the two top winners. And so I would actually be more inclined to say that Regina Hall now has, I wouldn't have said this before, but I think if One Battle After Another has enough momentum going into nominations, Regina Hall could get like a coattail, like a double. That could be the double nom of the year, is Tiana Taylor and Regina Hall, which I would not complain about at all.
Jen, do you think Wicked for Good has any, like, a strong chance in any other category?
Well, I think its best bets are the crafts, which I think you said earlier. I think it's likely to repeat. In addition, I think supporting actress is. I mean, I think it would be shocking if Ariana Grande didn't get nominated, because most people are saying that she's the front runner in that category. I do think that makeup and hairstyling, production design are I would be fairly confident that those would repeat. But the interesting thing is it's going to be going head to head in a lot of those categories with Frankenstein. So I'm not as confident about wins, especially costume. Like, costumes in Frankenstein are incredible.
That's true.
But
that diaper, it's so great.
But which round poorly lit window do you want to reward for production design?
For production design. Oh, did I not say production design earlier?
No, you did. You did.
Okay.
I wanted to make a joke about the two movies, so I did.
So, but I think its momentum going into nominations overall won't be as strong as the first Wicked movie, and therefore, like, I think Wicked overperformed with nominations because it was like people in general were so excited about it. I think that excitement is going to be more muted, and therefore it will pop up in a few craft categories. At this point, I would put it on the outside of Best Picture looking in, because Avatar is just too much of a black box, and I don't think there's enough room for both of them at this point. So we'll see. I think don't bet against Big Jim until you have facts to support it, is what I would say.
Did you all order your Big Jim tickets? Do you have tickets for Avatar yet?
I don't.
I don't, because I'm trying to make plans with a friend of mine, because Jasmine is like, I do not want to see this movie. But the Thursday at 2 p.m. opening day, first showing at the Chinese Theater IMAX. Plenty of seats still available, which makes me wonder, maybe this won't be the big blockbuster. It's not selling out the way that the 70 millimeter Sinners and even One Battle were selling in terms of like being gobbled up right away.
I can't wait till Jen releases this early, and now people know exactly where to find you. All the hardcore long take heads are going to be right there with you.
Get in, come on in. I'll point out my favorite my favorite Hands in the Concrete to you.
I mean, it hasn't been a problem for Sean Fennessy yet, so I think you're okay, PT.
That's fair. Well, that's because he always says he's going to see a movie in Burbank, and there's 30 movie theaters in Burbank, so people can't
it's vague enough
pinpoint where he is. There's 4 different AMCs within Burbank proper, all in
so PT
distance.
is in D4 at the 2:00 showing of Avatar.
No, come on. It's you want to look for row M, because that's right behind the break, and you get your own little. Yeah, it's row M. You'll find me there.
Wow. All right, Antonio, thank you for joining us. People will not be able to find you in row M, but where can they find you?
Find me on Letterboxd at Alefano, AELEFANO. Greg, where can they find you?
Mostly at the movie theater. I just want to put it out there that movies are crazy good this year. I am most of the way through my award season kind of prep, and I have not found a real stinker other than maybe tonight. So I will just say, if you are somebody who, we're going to get to them, and it may take us to like the end of February to get to all of these great movies, but people should be going to the movies and seeing them all and seeing them in theaters. And it was really genuinely wonderful to see the theaters so full of people for Wicked and Zootopia. It was just great, and I'm glad, and people should keep going to the movies and find good rep screenings, and just let's keep this industry alive. PT, where can people find you?
Greg, you never said where they can find you. You just said
at the movies. I was
say.
selflessly making myself the martyr so that the movies can reign for good.
Okay.
Go ahead.
For good. Well, you can find me trying to talk Antonio into row M for Avatar Fire and Ash. I don't think it'll work, but I'll see what I can do. You can also find me on Letterboxd at PT McNiff, PTMCNIFF. You can also find the show there at LTR Pod. You can find us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. You can email us, thelongtakereview@gmail.com, or you can follow us wherever you get your podcast, wherever you're listening right now. Hit like, hit add, hit heart, hit follow, whatever the mechanism is. Do it where you're listening right now. Listen for new episodes. There's a lot going on. We're about to start talking about scheduling when this is done. And who knows what the hell we're going to do for the next few weeks. Jen, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Sopchockchai, SOPCHOCKCHAI, or on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jen. Don't let these jokers tell you otherwise. I do log all the movies that I see. They're just not that many.
Eventually.
and they're like 2 days later after I see them. Who wants to do an Zootopia 2 review with me? Like, I'm ready. All right.
I do remember seeing the first Zootopia, and it was fine. Which is funny because I still haven't seen Frozen. I want to note, I do remember why. This is for after the credits if you want. I do remember why I don't really connect to the song for good. I feel like Elphaba was like, you murdered my sister, or you were part in the murder of my sister, and then never cares about that again. It never comes up. She never thinks about it. And I was like, are you guys such good friends? What was there a moment of like reckoning with that I just missed, or like I was blinking out, or is that part of the it's okay because it's the second act of a musical and stuff can just happen without consequence?
Friendship over content. That's all.
Got it.
I knew we were in for a rough one when Antonio didn't sing in his opening. I was like, oh.
Yeah. That's why I phoned mine in, because I was like, nothing to be with Antonio singing.
I was also clearing